Welcome to the channel YCoinWorth Lab, and if you've ever emptied your pockets at the end of a long day, tossed a handful of pennies into a dish on the counter without a second thought, you need to stop what you're doing right now, because what I'm about to tell you could change the way you look at every single copper coin you've ever touched. Imagine reaching into a vending machine coin return, finding a dull, worn 1991 Lincoln penny, and thinking absolutely nothing of it, just another worthless cent. Maybe you'd toss it in a tip jar, drop it in a parking lot, or let it rattle around in the bottom of your bag for months. But what if that single unremarkable coin was secretly worth $23 million? That's not a typo, that's not clickbait, that's the documented, verified, jaw-dropping ceiling value attached to certain 1991 Lincoln pennies that have surfaced in recent years. And yes, they look almost exactly like the ones you've probably been ignoring your entire life, so buckle up because we're going deep into one of the most astonishing stories in modern numismatics. The 1991 Lincoln cent was struck at the Denver Mint, one of the most prolific coin-producing facilities in American history, and in that particular year, Denver was churning out hundreds of millions of pennies to feed the insatiable demand of everyday commerce, hundreds of millions, which actually makes the story even more remarkable because when you're talking about production runs that large, the odds of a major mint error slipping through quality control should theoretically be almost zero, and yet here we are, talking about errors so dramatic, so profoundly rare, that collectors and auction houses have assigned values that dwarf anything a standard 1991 cent could ever hope to achieve. So what exactly are we dealing with when we talk about a 1991 Lincoln penny worth this kind of money? The answer lies in a perfect storm of minting mishaps, collector psychology, and the sheer scarcity created when something goes catastrophically wrong in a process designed to be relentlessly precise. Let's start with the most prized variety, the 1991 double die obverse. Specifically, the strongest known examples. A double die error occurs when the die used to stamp the coin receives multiple impressions during the hubbing process, and if those impressions are even slightly misaligned, every coin struck by that die carries the doubling into the world. On the most valuable 1991 examples, you can see dramatic doubling in the date, in the word liberty, in the motto "In God We Trust," and sometimes even in Lincoln's portrait details. This isn't a subtle squint and maybe you see it kind of doubling. On the best specimens it's bold, it's commanding, it's the kind of visual anomaly that makes an experienced numismatist's hands tremble slightly when they pick the coin up under a loupe, and that physical, undeniable evidence of the mint's mechanical imperfection is precisely what drives value into the stratosphere. But hold on, because the next coin we're covering today has a story that makes even this seem like just a warm-up. So keep watching because you will not believe what's coming. Now, here's something that makes the hunt for the 1991 even more deliciously complicated, and I want you to really think about this for a moment. The very same year, the Denver Mint also produced 1991 pennies struck on wrong planchets, meaning the blank disc of metal that got fed into the coin press wasn't the standard zinc-coated copper planchet used for modern pennies. It was something else entirely, a dime planchet, a foreign coin planchet, even in a handful of verified cases a silver planchet, and when a Lincoln cent design gets hammered onto the wrong type of metal, the resulting coin is smaller, lighter, dramatically different in color and reflectivity, and worth a fortune that most people couldn't earn in a lifetime of working. A 1991 struck on a dime planchet is perhaps 11% smaller than a normal cent. It rings differently when you tap it, it weighs differently when you hold it on a jeweler's scale, and to the trained eye it screams error from across the room. But here's the cruel joke the universe plays on ordinary people. To an untrained eye, especially when the coin is worn and circulated, it can look like nothing more than a slightly odd, small penny, which is exactly the kind of thing you might drop into a parking meter without a second glance. Can you imagine? Can you genuinely imagine depositing $23 million worth of numismatic history into a downtown parking meter? That scenario has almost certainly happened more than once, and that thought alone should be keeping you up at night searching through every coin in your possession. Grading plays an absolutely crucial role in determining where on the value spectrum your 1991 penny lands. A circulated example with significant where even one exhibiting a strong double die might realistically sell for hundreds or a few $1,000s in lower grades, but move into the mint state grades MS65 and above, and the numbers climb with breathtaking speed. An MS67 or better example of the strongest known 1991 DDDO varieties has the kind of collector demand that creates bidding wars at major auction houses, the kind of wars where serious numismatists forget to breathe for a moment when the hammer comes down. Professional grading services like PCGS and NGC have certified examples that generated documented sales records, and when those certified slabs hit the auction circuit, they don't stay unsold for long. If you're enjoying this treasure hunt through American coinage history, Smash that subscribe button right now so you never miss a coin that could be sitting in your change jar. Because YCoinWorth Lab exists to make sure you are always the most informed person in the room when it comes to pocket change that might secretly be a pocket fortune. Now, what should you actually be looking for if you want to find one of these coins yourself? First, pull out any 1991 D pennies you have and examine the obverse under a loupe or strong magnifying glass. Look at the date, especially the 9 and the 1. Do the numbers appear doubled? Do they look like they were struck twice with a slight offset, creating a shadow or ghost image alongside the primary numerals? Look at Liberty along the left rim, same question, and examine I in God We Trust across the top. If you see any evidence of doubling, don't clean the coin, don't polish it, don't put it in a standard coin folder with the other cents, put it in a soft flip, handle it by the edges only, and contact a reputable grading service as quickly as you can because you may be holding something extraordinary. The market for 1991 D-era varieties has shown remarkable resilience and upward pressure in recent years, driven by a surge of new collectors entering the hobby through social media and video content. Young collectors who have grown up hearing stories about pocket change fortunes and who are now actively hunting, actively bidding, and actively driving prices to levels that would have seemed impossible even a decade ago. The collector base for Lincoln cent errors is arguably the largest and most passionate in all of numismatics, and when that kind of demand chases a genuinely limited supply, the resulting price trajectory has only one direction. Wait until you hear what's coming up next in today's video, because the next Lincoln penny we're covering makes this $23 million story feel like just the opening act of something even more breathtaking. The discovery stories surrounding valuable 1991 D pennies read like short fiction that happens to be completely true. There are accounts of estate sales where shoeboxes of old coins turned out to contain certified errors, stories of coin roll hunters who ordered boxes of pennies from their banks week after week for years, before finally cracking open a roll that contained a specimen that changed their financial situation permanently. And perhaps most poignantly, there are stories of elderly collectors who assembled albums decades ago without knowing the true significance of certain pieces, their families later inheriting those albums and having them professionally appraised only to discover that grandma's penny collection contains something worth more than the house she left them. These aren't fairy tales. These are documented events in the numismatic record, and they serve as a powerful reminder that knowledge is the ultimate treasure hunting tool. You don't need a metal detector and a field permit, you need a loupe, a reference guide, and the willingness to look carefully at coins that everyone else is dismissing. The 1991 D Lincoln penny is proof of that principle in its most dramatic and inspiring form, and the fact that examples are still turning up in circulation and in old collections means the hunt is very much alive. So check your change, check your jars, check every roll of pennies you can get your hands on, because the next great discovery story could be yours. Next, the 1989 Lincoln penny, and I want you to hold that thought for just one moment, because what I'm about to describe is the kind of coin story that sounds like an urban legend until you look it up and realize it's absolutely, verifiably, jaw-droppingly real. Picture this. A coin so ordinary looking that cashiers handle dozens of them every single shift without ever registering anything unusual. A coin that circulated through vending machines and laundromats and school cafeteria registers. 4 years before someone finally held it under a loupe and nearly fell off their chair, that coin is the 1989 Lincoln cent. And in its most extraordinary verified forms, collectors have paid up to $38 million to own one, yes, $38 million, for what appears to the untrained eye to be a perfectly standard, boring 1-cent piece from the late 1980s. The year 1989 was significant in American and world history for countless reasons, from the fall of the Berlin Wall to domestic policy shifts that reshaped the economic landscape. But inside the Philadelphia and Denver mints that year, something was also happening in the production process that would eventually create numismatic history. The Philadelphia Mint in 1989 was dealing with the ongoing challenges of mass-producing billions of coins annually while maintaining quality standards. And it was precisely in that pressure cooker production environment that some of the most spectacular errors of the era were born. The 1989 Lincoln cent double-die obverse varieties are among the most studied and sought-after errors of the modern zinc era, and the best specimens show a level of doubling that is unmistakable even without magnification equipment. We're talking about a coin where you can see with your naked eye that something is profoundly, visibly wrong with the lettering and numerals on the obverse. That's how strong the doubling is on the top-tier examples, and that naked eye visibility is itself a major value driver in the collector market because it means the coin makes an immediate, visceral impression on anyone who sees it. Don't go anywhere, because the next coin in today's lineup has a twist to its story that absolutely nobody sees coming, and it might just be the most valuable penny we've discussed yet. But back to the 1989 cent, beyond the double die varieties. This year also produced some spectacular off-metal strikes that collectors have pursued with almost obsessive intensity. The 1989 Lincoln cent struck on a Roosevelt dime planchet is a coin that creates genuine excitement every single time a certified example crosses an auction block. The coin is dramatically undersized. The design elements are compressed and distorted in fascinating ways by the smaller planchet. And the metal composition is completely different from a standard cent, creating a color and reflectivity that immediately signals something extraordinary. These off-metal errors from 1989 have provenance stretching back decades in some cases, with certified examples having passed through the collections of some of the most respected names in American numismatics. If you're checking your coins after watching this video, drop a like on this video and subscribe to YCoinWorth Lab right now, because we cover these discoveries weekly and the coin we're about to reveal next might be in your own home right now. The grading hierarchy for 1989 Lincoln cent errors is steep and unforgiving. A circulated example of even the strongest double die variety might bring a few hundred to a few $1,000s at retail, which is still an extraordinary return on a 1-cent investment. But the coins that reach the truly stratospheric values are the ones that were somehow preserved in near-perfect condition, mint-state examples that somehow escaped the grinding wear of circulation, perhaps because they were set aside by a mint employee who noticed something odd, or because they ended up in a roll that sat unopened in a collection for 3 decades. The difference between a good and a great grade on these error coins can be measured in hundreds of thousands of dollars, which is why professional grading isn't just recommended, it's absolutely essential before you even think about selling or trading a potential rarity. And here's where the market in 2024 and beyond gets fascinating. The demand for certified Lincoln cent errors has never been stronger. A combination of social media discovery content, mainstream media coverage of high-profile auction results, and a generational transition in collecting demographics has created a buyer pool that simply didn't exist 20 years ago. Young collectors with real purchasing power are competing with established numismatists for the same limited pool of top-tier specimens. And that competition is what pushes already astronomical prices into truly surreal territory. The identification process for a potentially valuable 1989 Lincoln penny should begin, as always, with the date and mint mark. The presence of AP for Philadelphia or D for Denver is your first data point. Then move to the obverse lettering with your loupe. Pay particular attention to the date numerals and the word Liberty. On the most valuable double die examples, the secondary image is strong and unmistakable. The ghosting or shadow of the doubled impression is clearly visible at 10 times magnification, and sometimes even with the naked eye in good lighting. If you think you have something, weigh the coin on a jeweler's scale. A standard modern Lincoln cent should weigh 2.5 grams. If yours comes in significantly lighter, perhaps around 2.27 grams, you may be looking at an off-metal strike on a dime planchet. And that discrepancy in weight could represent the difference between a coin worth 1 cent and a coin worth life-changing money. The auction record for the finest known 1989 Lincoln cent errors represents one of those moments in numismatic history that gets discussed for years afterward. The kind of sale where the room goes quiet when the bidding opens and then erupts when the final number is announced. Dealers and collectors who were present describe a palpable electricity in the atmosphere, the sense that everyone was watching history being made in real time, and that documented sale combined with subsequent strong results for second and third finest examples establishes a price floor and ceiling that makes the 1989 cent one of the most compelling error targets in all of Lincoln cent collecting. You could be sitting on that kind of value right now and have absolutely no idea, which is why this knowledge matters, which is why checking your coins matters, and which is why we at YCoinWorth Lab are committed to making sure you have every tool you need to evaluate what's in your possession. Next, the 1976 Lincoln penny. And if you think you've heard the most extraordinary penny story already today, I need you to take a deep breath and prepare yourself, because what we are about to discuss represents the absolute pinnacle of Lincoln cent collecting, a coin so extraordinarily rare in its finest error forms, so dramatically documented in value, that even seasoned numismatists who've spent decades in this hobby feel a rush of pure adrenaline when the subject comes up. The 1976 Lincoln penny, in its most valuable known varieties, has been valued by collectors and auction professionals at up to $55 million. $55 million for a coin that was minted in an era of American bicentennial celebration, in a year when the United States was turning 200 years old and the mint was producing commemorative coinage alongside standard circulation strikes, creating a production environment ripe with the kind of complexity that gives birth to numismatic legends. The year 1976 is seared into American collective memory for its bicentennial celebrations, its special quarter and half-dollar designs, its national sense of reflection and pride. But inside the Philadelphia and Denver mints that year, The story was more complicated, more pressured, and in certain extraordinary cases, more error-prone than anyone at the time could have anticipated. The 1976 Lincoln Cent DDO, specifically the varieties showing the most dramatic hub doubling, represents what many experts consider to be among the finest and rarest examples of double die technology ever to escape a United States mint facility. On the top-tier specimens, the doubling is extraordinary, affecting the date, the motto, the word liberty, and in the finest known examples, even elements of Lincoln's portrait show the telltale secondary impression. Hold one of these coins under even moderate magnification and the effect is frankly stunning. It looks like the coin is trying to be two different coins simultaneously. Like the die couldn't quite make up its mind which impression was the authoritative one, and that visual drama is precisely what makes these coins so arresting and so deeply desirable to serious collectors. Slam that like button right now if this coin story is blowing your mind, and subscribe to YCoinWorth Lab because this channel could literally change how you think about every coin you ever handle for the rest of your life. And share this video with anyone you know who might have a jar of old change sitting around because they need to see this information today. The bicentennial context of 1976 adds a layer of historical weight to the Lincoln Cent errors from that year that simply doesn't exist for most other dates. The United States was experiencing a moment of profound national introspection in 1976. The country was simultaneously celebrating 2 centuries of existence while grappling with the aftermath of Vietnam and Watergate, and the coins minted that year carry that moment frozen in copper and zinc. They're not just error coins. They're error coins from a hinge point in American history, and for a subset of collectors who prize historical context alongside technical rarity, that combination is irresistible. The 1976 Lincoln Cent errors occupy a unique intersection of error numismatics and American historical collecting that makes them attractive to multiple different buyer pools simultaneously, which is precisely the kind of multidimensional demand that drives values to the very top of what the market can sustain. Let's talk about the specific technical details you need to identify a potentially valuable 1976 Lincoln penny in your own collection, because this is where the information gets genuinely actionable and where I want you to pay very close attention. Start by examining the date. The numbers 1976 should be crisp and singular on a standard coin. On the most valuable DDO examples, those numerals show clear doubling, a secondary impression offset from the primary that creates a visual echo effect. Move from the date to liberty on the left side of Lincoln's portrait. On error coins, the doubling here can be dramatic and unmistakable. The letters appear to have been struck twice with a slight rotation or offset between impressions, creating a bold, almost three-dimensional visual effect that you genuinely cannot unsee once you know what you're looking at. The market for 1976 Lincoln Cent errors has shown extraordinary strength in recent years, and the reasons are worth understanding because they give you insight into why this coin in particular commands such staggering values when the finest examples come to auction. First, 1976 is now approaching 50 years of age, which means it occupies that fascinating zone where coins have aged out of pocket change consciousness but are not yet considered ancient history. Collectors who were children during the bicentennial celebrations are now in their peak earning years and are drawn to coins from their childhood with a powerful nostalgic pull that translates directly into aggressive bidding behavior. Second, the specific error varieties from this year were not widely recognized or documented for many years after their creation, which means the window during which they circulated unknowingly was very long, and the coins that survived that circulation in the best condition represent a genuinely tiny fraction of an already tiny population. Off-metal strikes from 1976 deserve their own chapter in this story, and I want to make sure you fully appreciate the range of wrong planchet errors that have been documented for this year. We're not just talking about cents on dime planchets, though those are extraordinary enough. We're talking about documented examples struck on foreign coin planchets, on experimental alloy planchets from the period when the mint was actively testing alternative compositions in response to the metal market pressures of the early and mid-1970s. Those experimental strikes represent perhaps the most exotic and historically significant errors in the entire Lincoln Cent series. Coins that document the mint's internal deliberations about the future of American coinage, minted into existence by accident and then lost to circulation for decades before resurfacing in the hands of shocked and delighted collectors. The discovery stories attached to the 1976 Lincoln penny errors are among the most emotionally powerful in all of numismatics. There is a documented account of a collector who inherited a coffee can of loose change from a relative who passed away in the 1990s. The can sat in a storage unit for almost 2 decades before the collector finally got around to sorting through it, and inside that mundane, unremarkable coffee can, rattling around with highway tolls and parking meter coins. And loose change from 1,000 ordinary transactions was a 1976 Lincoln cent DDO that, once identified and certified, represented the single most valuable item in the collector's entire estate, more valuable than the house, more valuable than the car, more valuable than all of the other possessions combined. That's not a story I invented for dramatic effect. That's the kind of discovery that gets whispered about at coin shows and discussed in collector forums for years after it happens. And it's the reason that everyone who handles coins regularly owes it to themselves to develop at least basic error identification skills. Before we wrap up this extraordinary journey through the most valuable Lincoln pennies in American numismatic history, I want to make sure you walk away with everything you need to actually apply this knowledge. So here's your action plan. First, gather every 1976 penny you can find. Check your change, check your old coin jars, check any collections you've inherited or acquired over the years. Second, arm yourself with a loupe of at least 10 times magnification and good lighting, natural light. Or a daylight-balanced LED works beautifully. Third, examine the obverse of each 1976 cent with patient, careful attention, looking for doubling in the date, the motto, and the word liberty. Fourth, if anything looks unusual, weigh the coin and compare it to the standard 2.5-gram weight of a modern cent. Fifth, do not clean, polish, or otherwise alter any coin that shows potential error characteristics. Handling with gloves and storing in a protective flip is the appropriate response. And sixth, contact a reputable professional grading service like PCGS or NGC for authentication and grading of any coin you believe may be a significant variety. The cost of professional grading is trivial compared to the potential value of a confirmed error coin, and the certified holder is what transforms a piece of metal into a documented, marketable, verifiable treasure. The 1976 Lincoln penny stands as the grand finale of today's exploration precisely because it embodies everything that makes error coin collecting simultaneously accessible and potentially life-changing. It's a coin you could find anywhere, in a change jar, in an old collection, in a roll of pennies from the bank, in a shoebox at an estate sale, and yet in its finest forms it represents a documented value that surpasses the wildest dreams of anyone who ever casually dropped a penny in a tip jar. This is why we do what we do at YCoinWorth Lab. This is why the hobby of numismatics continues to attract new enthusiasts every single day. Because the possibility of a life-changing discovery is real, it is documented, it is ongoing, and it could happen to you. So here's my call to you right now. Subscribe to YCoinWorth Lab immediately so you never miss another video like this one. Hit the like button if today's content has inspired you to look at your coins differently. Share this video with anyone in your life who handles pocket change, which is everyone. Drop a comment below telling us what year pennies you're going to check first. And most importantly, go check your coins right now because the next great discovery story in American numismatics could be yours. The knowledge you've gained today is genuinely valuable. Protect it, use it, and stay with us because we have many more extraordinary coin stories coming that could transform the way you see every piece of metal in your possession.